Don't you ever wish you were down there?
I'm down there all I need to be.
Yes, but it's just a job to you. I'm talking about going down there and having some fun. Maybe with someone special. No. No dating for the Batman. It might cut into your brooding time.
1. Dating within the team always leads to disaster. 2. You're a princess from a society of immortal warriors. I'm a rich kid with issues. Lots of issues. And 3. If my enemies knew I had someone special, they wouldn't rest until they'd gotten to me through her.
Next.
Hey everyone, Mac here, and what we have here today is DC Collectibles DC Direct, Wonder Woman and Batman from Justice League Unlimited, the animated series. Remember, they had that whole animated universe going on with Batman, the animated series, The Adventures of Superman, and then Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. And these figures, they're not new. They're a little older, and I was going to wait until I had more of them because I just found out that my comic shop has the entire series of Justice League figures. Everything from Batman and Wonder Woman to Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Flash. They have villains too. Like, they have basically the entire animated series lineup, including figures from Batman the Animated Series. So I was going to wait until I had a few more to dive into this series, to dive into this collection, because these are the only two that I have so far. But after what happened this past week, I wanted to revisit this, and I wanted to take a look at DC Collectibles. Since, for those of you who don't know, DC Collectibles, DC Direct rather, is shutting down. AT&T, they called it a bloodbath this weekend. AT&T is restructuring Warner Media, which also includes DC Comics, and they are shutting down DC Direct. They have laid multiple people off from some subsidiary branches of like Warner Media. Warner Media had, I think, thousands of layoffs. And there's also rumor that DC Universe, the streaming service that has, that has Titans, that has Doom Patrol, that has Stargirl, and also has free digital comics. There's rumor that at this point is probably true that DC Universe is going to shut down, and all of the content from DC Universe is going to get wrapped into their new streaming service, HBO Max. So, there's a lot going on with DC. There's a lot going on with Warner Brothers. And restructuring is not always a bad thing. Remember, Marvel underwent massive restructuring multiple times before they got to where they are right now. And I remember back in the 90s, there was time when Marvel was on the verge of filing for bankruptcy, and that's why Stan Lee had to sell. I think that's what happened. That's why Stan Lee basically had to sell his brand to keep it afloat. There was a moment in the 90s where DC was doing so bad that Marvel Comics was debating buying DC and all of their properties. So imagine that timeline, if you will, where Batman and Wonder Woman and Superman are all part of the MCU. Yeah, just think of that. Huh. So with the loss of DC Direct, I wanted to take a look at these figures, and I'll still be getting more figures, so we'll be looking at them coming down the line. But right now we have Wonder Woman and Batman, DC Collectibles, DC Direct, Justice League Unlimited. And as you can see, they are done in that exaggerated animation style that their animation universe is known for. You can see that the boxes, remember we took a look at Cheetah and Wonder Woman during Wonder May. The boxes have side windows here so that you can see in from the side. They don't have, there's nothing up top You see it says Justice League up top. There's no window up top to let light come down into it to illuminate the figure inside the box. But you do have the side windows where you can see side profiles if you want to leave them in the box. But we all know I don't do that, so we'll be opening these things. But let's bring Wonder Woman up and get a better look at her. You can see there's animated artwork on the side. That even after I unbox them, I'm thinking of cutting these side pieces out just for the artwork and maybe somehow displaying it with the figures. I'm not sure. On the back here, we have the cross cell, which as you can see, we have, like I said, the entire Justice League, including Aquaman. He wasn't even used that often. Hawkgirl is another one that looks great. I would love to get her. I can't wait to get my hands on Martian Manhunter. Like, the whole line looks fantastic. And same thing with Batman here. We have some decent animated series artwork from him on the side. We have the cross cell on the back, which is the same, except instead of Batman here, we got Wonder Woman. And it says Justice League on top. On the bottom, there's not much to speak of. It's just legalese. So, there we have them in the boxes. Let's open these up. Let's get these out. And we will take a look at Justice League, Wonder Woman, and Batman. Okay, friends, here we go. We have Diana and Bruce, Wonder Woman and Batman out of the box, and we are going to be taking a look at them in more detail. And the first thing we're going to do is measure them and see how they're standing. I believe these are about 6-inch figures. So let's put the tape measure behind them, and Bruce, it looks like, comes up to about 6.5 inches, and Diana comes up to about 6.25, just to the top of her head. And I shouldn't have touched her because she's going to fall over. There we go. Now the first thing you can see is their proportions are fairly well done compared to the animated drawings of them, especially Batman with the broad shoulders, the narrow waist, and the thinner legs. Wonder Woman, Diana over here, I feel like she's a little bit more tiny than what she should be. Like, she's a little bit more Barbie doll than what she should be. She always seemed to be more broader across the shoulders in the animated drawing, much more like the guys are. As a matter of fact, that was one thing that I liked about the animated series, was that all of the female characters still had this very strong stance. And let's bring her forward a little bit. It just looks like she's just a little, focus in, she's just a little too narrow across the shoulders. Now, one thing we're going to take a look at first, start at the bottom. Look at these boots. Look at how small these feet are. This, I'm not even sure the camera's going to focus on this. It's trying to focus on Bruce. Hold on. I don't have manual focus. Well, there we go. They're just so small. There's not a whole lot of surface area right here, especially with being in the heels the way they are. That's one of the things I love about Wonder Woman, the 2017 movie. What they introduced was those flat bottom boots. That's not a heel. Her foot just sits in it. It still has that classic boot appearance, but it's a flat surface. And her legs, like I said, they're thin. Maybe a little thinner than they should be, but I really feel like her arms and across her chest here is just too narrow for what the animated version was. Also, while I do like this face sculpt, I don't think this is a very accurate representation of her from the animated TV show, from Justice League or Justice League Unlimited. I do love what they did with the eyes. With that dark lining around the eyes, it really makes her eyes stand out. And her hair piece, how it's all just one piece and has that animated look to it, I really like that too. So let's get into the articulation. And for the most part, the articulation of both of these figures is the same, with one difference, which I'll show you when we get to Batman. First of all, despite this big hair piece, Diana's head can do a full 360 for whatever reason you would want to. So she can do an over-the-shoulder look. Look off to the side if you wanted to do that. Her arms come out, about yo far. Single jointed elbow that doesn't fold all the way. That's as far as the elbow joints go. And it really makes it difficult for posing. You can't get that iconic like cross bracer look on her. No ab crunch, no waist articulation. Oh wait, I forgot about the wrists. Pivot at the wrists, or swivel at the wrists and pivot. Although you have to be careful when you're pivoting these wrists, because as you can see, this is very thin plastic, and if you bend them too much, there's a chance you could break them. At least I feel that. Splits, she can do the splits all the way out, just like I believe Wonder Woman and Cheetah were able to do. Single jointed knee. See that single jointed knee? Her leg comes that far forward and only about that far back. Swivel with the boot cut. And an ankle, whoop, let me get that out of the way. And an ankle pivot. No rocker. So that's what we have for Diana. And let's see if I can get her to stand back up while we take a look at Bruce. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying because, like I said, with those feet, those small boots, it's really hard to get her to stand. I was very fortunate on some of the posing shots. And the problem is, if you look at these feet, again, there's no place to put a peg hole. So she can't use a typical stand. I mean, where would you put the peg hole anyway on her? Her feet are so small. And I'm worried that her waist is too narrow, that if you had a clamp stand, it wouldn't work very well either. Honestly, with this figure, and truthfully with both of these figures, and you'll see once we get to Bruce, I feel like the cradle stand would probably be the best option for these animated line figures from DC Direct. And we're just going to lay her down. And we'll bring Bruce forward. Now, Bruce has basically all of the same articulation that Diana did. His head is actually very articulated. I was wondering with this cape and his neckline if he was going to have problems. And even though his head tilts a little bit, he can still turn. Also, his arms do come out to the sides, but because of his cape peaks when you try to do that. What he has that Diana doesn't have is a waist twist. That's really the only point of articulation he has that's different from Diana. His cape is a very heavy rubber cape. It's not molded in place. Well, this is molded and it doesn't move much. You can't like pull it back off his shoulder. Well, I guess you can a little bit, but it still doesn't really look right. There's a little bit of give to it, but there's really not much use. It's very heavy, and it does cause some problems that it makes him very back heavy when you try to stand him up. That sometimes if you don't get him just right, he has a tendency to fall backwards. Now, one thing that he has that Diana doesn't have is a peg hole down here on his foot. Let's see if we can focus in on that. He does have a peg hole down here on his foot. You can see right there. But, and here's a figure stand. This is a standard NECA figure stand that you can pick up at Target that's supposed to work with any figure. That the hole is big enough to fit on the peg, but it's not deep enough. That's as deep as the peg goes. So you can't use a standard stand with him either unless you sanded that peg down, or once again, if you got the cradle style of stands. So let's stand him up. Let's try one more time to see if we can get Diana stood up. If you work at it, you can get some poses out of her, which you can see from some of the photos that I've taken. But she just, those boots are not good for standing. So let's just set her down. Actually, let's set her to the side, because something else that I want to bring in is this. This is the McFarlane Batman animated series figure. Now, I'm a big fan of the animated series, as you've probably guessed from this video. And the reason I wanted to get the DC Direct animated series Batman, the Wonder Woman, all of the figures they have, is because DC Direct did an entire line of Justice League. As you saw at the cross sale, they also have some villains. They also have a lot of figures from Batman the Animated Series. And even this year, before they knew they were going to be closing, they were bringing out figures from a limited series called Batman the Adventure Continues, which is a direct continuation to Batman the Animated Series. And one of the figures they brought out is actually Batman in this power armor suit that looks like the power armor from Batman the Dark Knight Returns when he was facing off against Clark. And that looks cool. So this entire line of figures dedicated to the animated series that DC Direct put out, I want to get the whole series. Now, I am a big fan of the McFarlane Toys, and I like the look of the animated figures that they've made, but they've made Batman, Superman, and Green Lantern. How there's no Wonder Woman included in that, I have no idea. Oh, they also have a Harley Quinn. That they just call it Harley Quinn, the original look, but it's basically Harley Quinn from Batman the Animated Series. And I just don't know that McFarlane Toys is ever going to do the entire Justice League, or McFarlane Toys is going to do all of the figures that they've done for Batman the Animated Series, with all of the villains, all of the side characters, everything they have going on. So I'm going to try and scoop those up as fast and as I possibly can, so that I have that set, while I'm also getting the McFarlane Toys animated figures as they come out here and there. I know I'm insane, but such is the nature of my partitude. Now, the biggest difference that you can see between here is that this is definitely Batman from Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and this is definitely Batman from Batman the Animated Series. The biggest difference is Animated Series had the yellow shield. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, it was just the black bat. So, let's take him away, and we're going to take a look at McFarlane Toys' Batman the Animated Series figure. And first of all, with the DC Direct, what you just saw was what you get. There's no accessories, there's no additional hands, there's no additional heads, there's not even any stands, there's nothing that comes with them. $20 gets you the two figures you just saw. $20 from the McFarlane Toys gets you another inch in height, I believe. So let's get the tape measure out here, and we'll put it to the bottom of the stand. And I'll tell you why I have to have him on the stand in a moment. And he comes in, falling over. He comes in at roughly 7 1/4 inches. So you get about 3/4 of an inch taller. As you can see, you get a much broader chest. I kind of like the expression on the DC Direct more than I do the McFarlane Toys. This looks more like the hand-drawn expression that Batman had. But you get the stand with it as well. You also get this trading card, which you've seen with some of the, if you watched any of my Wonder May videos, when I opened up the McFarlane Toys Wonder Woman action figures, you've seen this. This wonderful piece of artwork right here from Batman the Animated Series, it's what's on the back of the box. You flip the card over, and it tells you source, Batman the Animated Series, animation 1992, real name Bruce Wayne, and then a rundown on who Batman is in case you, for whatever reason, don't know who Batman is. Something else that you get with him are these, hands that you can see. They are gripping hands, and they are made to hold these two accessories, the grapple gun and his batarang. Now, this is cool. And also, with this gripping hand, it may not look like it at first because I didn't think you'd be able to do it, but you can actually get the grapple gun between the fingers of the handpiece there. See that? You'll be able to see that in the photos that I took of him in action. Also, the reason I have to put him on the stand right now, even just standing here, is because much like Batman from DC Direct, he has a very heavy rubber cape that has even less give, and it's actually much heavier than the DC Direct one. So without the stand, and even sometimes with the stand, it's very, very difficult to just stand him up straight because he wants to fall backwards. Now let's take him off the stand, and let me show you some articulation on this guy. First of all, he does do the full head rotation, but the problem is that where they put the rotating point of the head, he starts to do that. You can see the rotation point is right here at the base of the cow on the neck, and it doesn't go all the way around, it just pivots like that. Now his arms can go all the way out to the side, but because they lowered the joints of the arms a little bit, it doesn't boost the cape up nearly as much as the DC Direct one does. Also, it's on a butterfly hinge in here, so you get a little bit more travel out of it. He has single jointed elbows, and if you remember, Wonder Woman had double jointed on her 1984. Oh, he also has a bicep swivel right here. But Wonder Woman 1984 had double jointed elbows. He has single jointed elbows. and you can see they're ratcheted. Let me see if you can hear that. I don't know if you can hear that clicking, but they're very tight and they hold position very well. Only thing that I'm worried about is the more that you move them, the more they'll start to grind that down, and they may not hold their position. The wrist swivel. And pivot. Now he does have a little bit of an ab crunch, not much, but he has a little bit. You can twist at the abs too, and he also twists at the waist. Legs come out, you can do a full split. They go forward about that much, come back about that much. He does have double jointed knees, which is great for his dynamic posing. And he has ankle pivot, no side-to-side rocking, just pivot, and toe articulation. Just like Wonder Woman, there's no thigh cut, there's no thigh swivel, there's no boot cut. There's no swivel in the legs. But as we saw with Wonder Woman, and even as you'll see with Batman here, I'm finding myself realizing more and more that we don't really need it. Okay, so here we go. We have McFarlane Toys Batman, the animated series up front with Wonder Woman and Batman back in their boxes. They actually fit very well back in the boxes. So if you do find these and you buy them and you want to take them out and put them back in the box, they actually go back in very easily and very well. And this is good because I'm probably, for the time being, even after I get more of the Justice League, and as I get more Justice League, I'll bring them on the show. I'll show them off to you so you can take a look at them. Because I know not everybody will be able to find them, and these are just some really cool pieces to take a look at. But for right now, I'm going to be keeping them in the boxes because I don't have any of those stands, like the cradle and the crotches of the figures that I was talking about. And they're not cheap. They're like $5 a stand. So to get the entire Justice League, that's $20 per figure. And then a stand for each one of them, that's at least going to be another $5 per figure. So you're looking at $25 per figure in that instance. Eventually, I'll get there, but not right now. And as McFarlane Toys brings out more of the animated series figures, and I'll be getting Superman, I'll be getting Green Lantern, and I'll be getting Harley, because I want to start building up this 7-inch Justice League as best as we'll be able to. They have to come out with a Wonder Woman at some point. There has to be an animated series Wonder Woman coming out. Even though, like, we haven't seen hide nor hair of it, they have to be coming out with her. So, DC Direct is no more, and I believe anything that has been coming out, anything that's for sale on their website, is it. I believe they've laid off all the employees, they've shut the place down. I don't know fully to what extent they've shut it down, but I do know that AT&T closed down DC Direct, and I get it. I really do. I understand. When McFarlane got the DC Universe license off of Mattel, we just thought that was because Mattel wasn't really doing much with it, and they didn't. And now knowing that Mattel was putting all of their efforts into their new He-Man Masters of the Universe Origins, and then their 7-inch tall figures that are going to be coming out later, it just seemed like maybe Mattel had their eyes on other priorities. So DC was like, okay, we'll sell the multiverse license to McFarlane Toys. He seems to be doing pretty good. But then McFarlane Toys started bringing out the 7-inch figures, and that was the dominion of DC Essentials. And that kind of, I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, that was kind of a hint to a lot of us that DC Direct might be going under. They might be doing away with it. And I get it. They'll still be making money off of the McFarlane Toys, but they won't have to pay for production. They won't have to manufacture. I understand. It's a shame, though, because DC Direct Collectibles, their figures were really good. And even with the complaints that I had with these ones, and mostly about standing and posability, Wonder Woman is the exception and not the rule. You saw the Wonder Woman that I had during Wonder May. You saw the Cheetah figure, which is absolutely beautiful. Plus, there's a Cyborg Superman. There's a whole lot of other figures that DC Direct has that are just fantastic figures. And like I said, the entire animated Justice League, which I can't wait to get my hands on. But it is the end of an era after 22 years. So, it's a shame that it's going away. The businessman, the business side of it, I can understand. The businessman in me is like, yeah, this is probably the best direction to go to keep DC, to keep costs down for DC, to keep costs down for Warner and AT&T in general, and just to keep DC viable. The collector in me thinks this absolutely sucks. But we do have these to look forward to, and I'll be bringing them to you as I get them. So that's what I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. Play well, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.